Let me tell you about the moment I understood what karma actually looks like. Not the abstract version, not the comfortable idea that the universe keeps score and eventually balances the books, the specific, precise, methodical version. The version that shows up in a dark suit and a perfect resume and sits across from you in an interview and smiles at exactly the right moments and says exactly the right things and waits. My name is Maya Chin. I am 42 years old. I built a company from nothing. I have 47 employees. I have a corner office on the 31st floor of a building on Michigan Avenue with a view of Lake Michigan that I chose specifically because of what it represented. I arrived. I built this. And I did it. I want to be honest about this because dishonesty is what started everything. I did it by taking something that wasn't mine. 15 years ago, from a woman named Diana Walsh. I have not thought about Diana Walsh in a very long time. Her son, it turns out, has been thinking about me every single day for 15 years. My name is Maya Chin. I am 42 years old. I grew up in Evanston, the suburb just north of Chicago that sits between the city and something quieter, that has a specific quality of ambition that comes from being close enough to the city to see it, but not yet inside it. My parents were both academics. My mother a chemistry professor at Northwestern, my father a mathematician. I grew up in a house where excellence was not celebrated but expected, which is a different thing and which produces a different kind of person. It produced me. I went to Northwestern on a partial scholarship. I graduated with honors in business administration. I got a job at Hartwell Consulting Group at 22, a mid-sized strategy consulting firm in the Loop, the kind of company that takes young talent and puts it through a specific pressure that either breaks it or makes it exceptional. I was going to be exceptional. I had decided this before I arrived. What I had not decided, what I told myself for years was simply the inevitable outcome of a competitive environment, was what I was willing to do to get there. I met Diana Walsh in my first week at Hartwell. She was 28, 6 years older than me. She had been at Hartwell for 4 years and was, by any objective measure, the most talented person in our division. Not the most political. Diana was not particularly political, which was, I understood even at 22, both her greatest quality and her most significant vulnerability. She was genuinely brilliant and genuinely trusting. Both things were true. Both things mattered. I need to tell you what I did. Not the version I told myself for 15 years, the version where the environment was competitive and I was ambitious, and these things happen in corporate settings, and Diana was not without her own flaws, and the whole thing was more complicated than it looked from the outside. The true version. Diana had spent 8 months developing a client strategy for Hartwell's largest account, a healthcare systems company called Meridian, that represented approximately 30% of the firm's revenue. The strategy was elegant, comprehensive, genuinely innovative in the specific way of work that reflects someone who has been thinking about a problem from every angle for a long time. She trusted me with it. Not naively. We were colleagues. We worked together. She had reason to trust me. I presented the strategy to senior leadership as my own. Not piece by piece, not incrementally, all of it, with Diana's name removed and mine in place. I had timed it carefully. Diana was on medical leave, 2 weeks, a procedure she had scheduled for a long time and finally taken. I had access to the files. I knew the timeline for the leadership presentation. I presented on a Tuesday. Diana came back on a Thursday. By Thursday afternoon, the strategy had been attributed to me in 3 separate internal communications.
By the following Monday, Diana had been called into a meeting about concerns regarding her productivity and contribution to the Meridian account. She was let go 6 weeks later. I got promoted 4 months after that. I have thought about Diana Walsh approximately twice in 15 years. Once, in the first year, when guilt was still present enough to require attention. Once, briefly, when I was building the team for my own company, and her name came up in a reference context, and I moved past it quickly. Twice, in 15 years. His son had been thinking about me every day. Coworker'sProject was founded 7 years ago, a boutique strategy consulting firm, the same work I had done at Hartwell, but mine. My vision, my clients, my name on the door. It had not been easy. The first 3 years were the specific grinding difficulty of a small firm trying to establish itself in a market that has many established firms and limited patience for new ones. I had lost clients I thought were certain. I had made hires that did not work out. I had had months where payroll was a calculation I made at 2 in the morning and was not entirely certain about. But I had built it. 47 employees, a client list that included 2 Fortune 500 companies, and the Vesper account, which was the thing that had changed everything 2 years ago. Vesper Capital was a private equity firm with a portfolio of 11 companies that needed ongoing strategic consultation. Landing Vesper had been the inflection point, the moment when Coworker'sProject went from a promising small firm to something that was genuinely significant. The Vesper renewal was coming up. 18 months of work had been building toward a presentation in 6 weeks. 47 employees whose jobs depended in significant part on what happened in that presentation. It was the most important 6 weeks in Coworker'sProject's history. And it was the 6 weeks during which I hired Ethan Walsh. The hiring process for the analyst position had produced 17 qualified candidates. Ethan Walsh's application had not been among the first batch. It arrived late, a week after the initial deadline, with a brief note explaining that he had completed a consulting engagement and had only recently seen the posting. I almost didn't read it. My head of talent, Rosario, had flagged it specifically. "Maya, I know it came in late, but you need to look at this one. The work samples are... I've been doing this for 9 years, and I have not seen this work from a recent graduate." I read it. Rosario was right. The work was exceptional. Not the polished but hollow kind of exceptional that good business schools produce in volume. The kind that reflects genuine original thinking, the kind that sees problems from angles that are not obvious, and that builds solutions that are elegant precisely because they are simple. It reminded me of something, a quality of thinking I had encountered before. I did not in that moment understand why it was familiar. I called him for an interview. He arrived on a Tuesday morning. Ethan Walsh was 24 years old, dark hair, medium height, the specific composed quality of someone who is entirely comfortable in a room that is designed to make people slightly uncomfortable. The interview, the power differential, the deliberate assessment. He was composed in a way that 24-year-olds are usually not. "Tell me about yourself," I said. He smiled. "I'd rather tell you about the problem I think you're not seeing in your Vesper renewal strategy," he said. I looked at him. "We haven't discussed our Vesper strategy," I said. "No," he said, "but I've been following Coworker'sProject for 2 years, and I think there's a vulnerability in how you're positioning the value proposition for the renewal that your current team may not be seeing because they're too close to it." I leaned forward. "Tell me," I said. He told me. He was right. I hired him that afternoon.
Ethan Walsh had been at Coworker'sProject for 3 weeks when I noticed the name. Not Ethan. Walsh. It had been in front of me from the beginning, on his application, on his offer letter, in the employee system. Walsh. A common enough surname that I had not connected it. I connected it on a Thursday afternoon. I had been going through old files, a specific kind of archaeology that building a company requires occasionally, looking back at the foundations to understand the present, old client documents, early strategy work, the files from my time at Hartwell. A file labeled Meridian Strategy, Walsh, D. I stopped. I opened it. Diana Walsh. I sat at my desk on the 31st floor with a view of Lake Michigan, and I thought about a 28-year-old woman I had met in my first week at Hartwell. I thought about 8 months of her work. I thought about a Tuesday presentation. I thought about the name on the application sitting in my employee system. Ethan Walsh, 24 years old. Diana's son would be, I did arithmetic quickly, approximately 24 years old. I sat very still, and I thought about the specific composed quality of a young man who had walked into an interview and immediately told me about a vulnerability in my most important strategy, who had been following Chenstrat for 2 years, who had applied late, who had arrived exactly 6 weeks before my most important presentation in my company's history. I picked up my phone. I searched Diana Walsh, Chicago. The results loaded, and I sat with what I found for a very long time. Diana Walsh had not disappeared. This is what I found on a Thursday afternoon on the 31st floor. After Hartwell, after I had presented her work as mine and she had been let go 6 weeks later, Diana had spent 2 years rebuilding, not quietly, not bitterly, but methodically. She had gone back to school, an MBA at Booth, which she completed in 2 years while consulting independently to pay for it. She had started her own firm at 32, a small strategy consultancy, focused on healthcare systems, the same sector as the Meridian work, the work I had taken. The firm had grown steadily, not to my scale. Diana's firm was smaller, more boutique, more deliberately contained, but real, established, respected in the healthcare strategy space in the way that trade publications had noted several times. She had built something, without me taking anything else from her. She had rebuilt from what I had done, and she had a son named Ethan who was 24 years old and had applied late to my firm 6 weeks before my most important presentation in my company's history. I searched for Ethan Walsh. His LinkedIn profile was sparse: recent graduate, a few consulting engagements, a Northwestern degree. Northwestern, his mother's school. His mother, who had rebuilt her career after I destroyed the first version of it. Her mother, who had presumably told him at some point in his 24 years what had happened to her at Hartwell Consulting Group in the year he was born. I sat at my desk, and I thought about the Vesper renewal, 6 weeks away, and I made a decision, not the right decision, the decision of someone who has spent 15 years not thinking about something and has just had it arrive in their employee system. I decided to watch.
I watched Ethan Walsh for 3 weeks. Not obviously, I was his employer, I had legitimate reasons to observe his work, but specifically, carefully, the way you watch something when you are not entirely sure what you are watching. What I saw was this: he was extraordinary. Not performing extraordinary, actually extraordinary in the specific way of someone whose thinking is genuinely faster and more comprehensive than the people around them. He saw things. He asked questions that reframed problems. He produced work that was, on several occasions, significantly better than what my senior analysts were producing. He was also, I noticed, spending a great deal of time in the Vesper files. More than his role required, more than I had assigned him to. He had access because I had given him access. I had put him on the Vesper renewal team because his skills were directly relevant, and because, I told myself, his insight in the interview had demonstrated that he understood the account. He was in those files constantly. Late evenings, early mornings. The access logs showed a pattern of engagement that went well beyond what a junior analyst needed for the work I had assigned him. I called Rosario into my office. "The Vesper files," I said. "What does Ethan's access look like?" Rosario checked. "He's been in the strategic framework documents mostly, the client history, the relationship mapping." "The relationship mapping," I said. The relationship mapping was the most sensitive document in the Vesper renewal package, the specific architecture of our relationships with the 11 portfolio companies, the advocates for Chen Strat, the ones who were neutral, the ones who had reservations. It was also the document that, in the wrong hands, could most effectively undermine a renewal. "Pull his access to that document," I said. "Quietly. Don't tell him." Rosario looked at me. "Is something wrong?" she said. "I don't know yet." I called Diana Walsh on a Friday evening, not from my office phone, from my personal cell, from the parking garage of my building, which felt in the moment like the appropriate location for a call I had been not making for 15 years. She answered on the third ring. "Diana Walsh?" Professional. Crisp. The voice of someone who answers her phone expecting business. "Diana," I said, "this is Maya Chen." A silence. The specific silence of a person encountering something they did not expect and are deciding how to encounter it. "Diana," she said. Her voice had not changed much. 15 years. It had not changed much. "I need to tell you something, and I need to ask you something, in that order." "All right," she said. I told her first what I had done at Hartwell, the Meridian strategy, the Tuesday presentation, the timing of her leave. I said it all, not the version, the truth, the specific, unambiguous, this is what I did truth that I had spent 15 years not saying to anyone, including myself. She listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long silence. "I know," she said. "I know what you did," she said. "I figured it out about a year after. I found a file, something you missed when you took the documents, a draft with my naming convention on it. I knew." "You never—" "What was I going to do?" she said. "I had no job. I had a 6-month-old. I was trying to survive, Maya. I didn't have the resources to fight Hartwell and you simultaneously." 6-month-old. Ethan had been 6 months old when Diana was let go. "Your son," I said. "Ethan. He's working for me." The silence this time was different. "I know," Diana said. "You know," I said. "He told me he was going to apply," she said. "I told him not to. I told him it was my fight, not his, and that it was over." "He applied anyway," I said. "He's 24, Diana said. "He doesn't always listen." "Diana," I said, "what is he planning?" A very long pause. "I don't know the specifics, but Maya, he's been planning something since he was 17, since I told him what happened. I tried to stop him. I told him it wasn't worth it. He has my stubbornness and none of my willingness to let things go." I sat in my parking garage. "The Vesper renewal is in 3 weeks." "I know," she said. 47 people, Diana said quietly. "I know, I've told him that." "Has he listened?" Another pause. "Call me tomorrow. Let me talk to him tonight."
Diana called me the next morning at 8:15. She said, "I talked to him." "And?" She said, He's angrier than I understood," she said. "Not just for me. He's angry about what it did to our life. The years when money was tight. The years when she was rebuilding and he was watching me rebuild and understanding, gradually, why. He has been carrying this for a long time. What is he planning specifically? Diana said he contacted 2 of your Vesper portfolio relationships, the ones who have reservations about the renewal. He's been providing them with analysis, strategic analysis, that suggests ChenStrat's approach has fundamental weaknesses. I closed my eyes. The relationship mapping. The document he had been in before I pulled his access. He had known who the skeptics were. He had gone to them directly, with analysis designed to deepen their reservations 3 weeks before the renewal presentation. How much damage has he done? I said. I don't know, Diana said. He wouldn't tell me everything. Diana, can you get him to stop? A long pause. I can try, she said. But, Maya, I need you to understand something. What he did, what he's been doing, it came from somewhere real. He watched his mother work 2 jobs while finishing an MBA. He watched her rebuild something from the ground because of what you took. He's not wrong about the wrong. I know, I said. Do you? She said. Because I've been waiting 15 years for you to know that. I called Ethan into my office on Monday morning. He came in. He sat down. He looked exactly as he always looked, composed, the specific stillness of someone who has been waiting for something and is not surprised it has arrived. You know why you're here, I said. Yes, he said. How long have you been planning this? I said. He thought about it. Since I was 17, he said. When my mother told me what happened, I applied to Northwestern specifically because she went there. I went into strategy consulting specifically to understand what you do and how you do it. I applied to ChenStrat specifically because of the Vesper renewal timing. 7 years. He had been planning for 7 years. You contacted Vesper portfolio executives. Yes, he said. With analysis designed to undermine our renewal. With accurate analysis. I didn't fabricate anything. The weaknesses I identified are real. The concerns I raised are legitimate. I just made sure the right people were aware of them at the right time. I looked at him. 47 people work here. Something moved in his face, the first crack in the composure. I know, he said. They didn't take anything from your mother. A longer silence. No, he said.
The conversation with Ethan lasted 2 hours. I want to tell you what happened in it honestly, because I think the honest version is more complicated and more important than the simple version. The simple version, I confronted him, I made him understand the collateral damage, he stopped. The honest version is different. He did not stop because I confronted him. He stopped, or rather he changed what he was doing, because of a specific thing I said approximately 40 minutes into the conversation. I told him about the call with Diana, not the strategic details, the thing Diana had said. I need you to understand something. What he did, what he's been doing, came from somewhere real. And then, I've been waiting 15 years for you to know that. I told Ethan that I had called his mother, that I had told her what I had done, the full version, not the version, the truth. He looked at me for a long time. She didn't tell me you called, he said. She found out Friday evening. You talked Saturday morning. She called me at 8:15. He was processing something. "What did she say?" he said. "She said you have her stubbornness and none of her willingness to let things go," I said. Something happened in his face. Not a crack this time, something deeper. The specific expression of a person who has been carrying something for a very long time and has just heard it described accurately by someone unexpected. "She's been trying to get me to stop for 2 years," he said. "I know," I said. "She doesn't want this," he said. "No," I said. He looked at the table. "I contacted 2 executives, Morrison at Hendricks Capital and Lee at Pacific Bridge. I sent them analysis last week. Can it be walked back?" He thought about it. "Not entirely, but I know what I told them. I know what the actual weaknesses are versus what I emphasized. I could send a follow-up, context, the full picture rather than the selected one. Would they receive it?" "Morrison would. Lee I'm less sure about." "What would take it to make Lee receive it?" He looked at me. "You," he said. "A direct call from you, acknowledging the concerns and presenting a response. Not me." "All right," I said. He looked at me for a moment. "Why are you doing this? The direct call. You could just fire me and manage the damage yourself." I thought about it. "Because you were right about the vulnerability, the one you identified in the interview, the one you used against me. It's real, and I need someone who can see things like that on the Vesper team." He stared at me. "You're not firing me?" "I'm not firing you. I'm asking you to fix what you started and then help me build the presentation that actually addresses the weaknesses you found." "Why would you trust me?" "I don't, not yet, but I trusted your mother once, and I destroyed that trust, and I spent 15 years not thinking about it. I'm done not thinking about things." Ethan sent the follow-up to Morrison that afternoon. I called Lee directly. It was not a comfortable call. Lee was direct in the specific way of people who have been given selected information and feel slightly manipulated by the selection retroactively. "I received an analysis from one of your analysts, and now I'm receiving a call from you. I'm trying to understand what's happening at Chen Strat. What's happening is that I became aware that one of my analysts provided you with an incomplete picture, and I wanted to give you the full one. The concerns he raised are real. I'm not going to tell you they aren't, but there's context and a response strategy that he didn't include, and I owe you that." A pause. "Why didn't he include it?" he said. "Because he had reasons for wanting to emphasize the concerns, personal reasons that have nothing to do with you or with Vesper. I take responsibility for not having the full picture before he had access to you." "Personal reasons," he said. "Yes. I'll explain in person if you want the full story, but the short version is that I made a serious mistake 15 years ago that affected someone connected to this analyst, and he joined Chen Strat partly to address that. I'm dealing with both things simultaneously." A long silence. "That's an unusual thing to say," he said. "It's an unusual situation." Another silence. "Come in Thursday, bring the full picture," he said. "I'll bring the full picture and the analyst. He should be there too." A pause. "All right," he said. The Thursday meeting with Lee was 3 hours. Ethan came. He presented the weaknesses he had identified, all of them, accurately, without selection. I presented the response strategy. We worked in that conference room as something that did not have a clean name, not employer and employee exactly, not adversaries, not allies in any uncomplicated sense. 2 people who were trying to fix something that was broken in multiple directions. Lee watched us both. At the end of the 3 hours, he said, "I want to understand something. The analyst you brought, he's the one who sent me the original analysis." "Yes," I said.
And you brought him here anyway? Yes, I said. Why? I looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at me. Because he's my best analyst, I said, and because the concerns he raised are legitimate, and you deserve to hear him address them directly. Lee looked between us for a long moment. I'll recommend renewal to the Vesper partners, he said, based on today's presentation, not the first one. The Vesper renewal was confirmed 4 weeks later. All 11 portfolio companies, a 3-year contract, the most significant renewal in Chen Strat's history. I called Diana when it was confirmed. It went through, I said. A pause. I heard, she said. Ethan told me. He's staying, if he wants to. I offered him a senior analyst position. I know, she said. He told me that, too. Is he going to take it? I think so. He's processing. What happened was not what he planned. He planned to watch you lose something the way I lost something. He didn't plan to help you save it. Is he okay? A pause. He will be, she said. He's 24. He has time to figure out what to do with what he's carrying. Diana, I owe you something, not just an apology. The Meridian strategy was yours. Whatever career it built, that should have been yours. She was quiet for a long time. Yes, she said, it should have been. I don't know how to give that back, I said. I've been trying to figure out what I can give back, and I don't have a good answer. There isn't one, she said. You can't give it back. That's what you need to understand. Some things can't be returned. They can only be acknowledged, and then you decide what to do next. What do you want to do next? A very long pause. My firm has been looking for a larger strategic partnership, healthcare systems specifically. It's the sector I know. I sat at my desk. The view of Lake Michigan, the corner office I had chosen for what it represented. Call me Thursday, I said, with your terms. Ethan came to my office on a Wednesday afternoon. He knocked. He came in. He sat down. He looked different from the composed 24-year-old who had walked into an interview and immediately told me about a vulnerability in my strategy. Not less composed, differently composed. The composure of someone who has executed a 7-year plan and discovered that the execution did not produce what the planning promised. I'm going to take the position, he said. Good, I said. I need to tell you something first, he said. All right, I said. When I applied here, he said, I had a specific outcome in mind. I wanted you to lose the Vesper account. I wanted you to understand what it felt like to have something you built taken away. I know, I said. What I didn't account for was that you would call my mother, that you would tell her the truth. That was not part of what I planned. Why did that matter? He thought about it. Because she spent 15 years not hearing it, and she needed to hear it more than I needed you to lose a contract. I looked at him. Your mother is a better person than I am. Yes, he said, she is. A pause. Does that mean you're not going to try to destroy my company anymore? Something that was almost a smile. I'm going to try to make it better, which is probably more effective anyway.
Chen Strat and Walsh Strategic Health announced a formal partnership in January, a co-branded practice focused on healthcare systems strategy, the sector Diana had rebuilt her career in, the sector that had started with the Meridian work she'd done at Hartwell 15 years before. The press release described it as two complementary firms combining expertise. It did not describe the history. The history belonged to us. Diana and I had a conversation about the press release before it went out. Do you want to tell the story? I asked her. The actual one? Some people might find it instructive. She thought about it. Not yet, she said. Maybe eventually, but right now I want to build something. The story can come after there's something built. Fair enough, I said. Maya? Yes? The partnership doesn't make us even,
she said. "I want to be clear about that." "I know," I said. "But it's a start," she said. "It's what's available." "It's what's available," I said. "Yes. Ethan has been at Chenstrat for 8 months now. He is, as I told Lee in that conference room, the best analyst I have. Not because of what he did, not because of the 7 years of planning or the precision of the Vesper vulnerability analysis or the specific skill with which he identified and approached the skeptics, because of what he is. He sees things. He asks questions that reframe problems. He produces work that is, the word I keep returning to, elegant. The specific elegance of thinking that has been shaped by someone who is genuinely brilliant, his mother, whose work I took, whose thinking I presented as mine, whose son has in 8 months produced work that has made Chenstrat measurably better. The inheritance ran in a direction I did not anticipate. I think about the corner office sometimes, the view of Lake Michigan, the building I chose specifically for what it represented. I arrived, I built this. Both of those things are true. And also true, I arrived on a foundation that was partly someone else's. I built this on ground that was partly taken. Both sets of truths exist simultaneously. I have spent 8 months learning to hold both. It is not comfortable. Comfort was the 15 years I spent not thinking about Diana Walsh. This is harder and more honest, and I find more sustainable in the specific way of things that are true. You can rest in something true. You cannot eventually rest in something that isn't. I learned this from a 24-year-old who planned for 7 years and then changed the plan when the situation required it. He got that flexibility from his mother, who rebuilt from nothing. Twice, in a sense. The first time alone. The second time with the person who had made the first rebuilding necessary.
Diana and I have lunch sometimes. Not often, once a month maybe, at a restaurant in the West Loop that is equidistant from both our offices, which is a neutral geography we arrived at without discussing it. It is not comfortable lunch. I do not think it will ever be comfortable lunch, but it is honest lunch. We talk about the work, about the partnership, about Ethan sometimes, with the specific shared interest of 2 people who are watching someone become what they are going to be. He has his mother's thinking. He has something else, a quality I noticed in the interview and have continued to notice, a quality that does not come from Diana's rebuilding or from my taking or from anything that happened before he was born. Something that is entirely his. A willingness to change the plan when the situation requires it. A willingness to say, this is not what I intended, but this is what is needed. That is a rare quality. At 24, it is a remarkable one. I told Diana this over lunch a few months ago. She looked at her coffee for a moment. He learned it the hard way, she said. He planned something for 7 years and it didn't go the way he planned, and he had to decide in real time what to do with that. What did you tell him when he was figuring it out? I said. She thought about it. I told him what I tell myself, she said. The plan is not the point. The plan is just how you get started. The point is what you actually build. I sat with that. That's good advice, I said. It's how I rebuilt, she said, after Hartwell. I had a plan. The plan didn't survive contact with reality, so I built something different. Better? I said. She looked at me. Ask me in 5 years, she said. That's the whole story, or the part I'm ready to tell. I want to say something about plans, about the specific human conviction that if you plan something carefully enough, for long enough, with enough precision and patience, the outcome will be what you intended. Ethan planned for 7 years. He was precise, patient, methodical. He executed the plan with a skill that I, who have spent 20 years in strategy consulting, found genuinely impressive, and the plan did not produce what he intended.
Not because he failed, because the situation changed, because I called his mother, because his mother had spent 15 years building something from what I had broken, because some plans, when they finally meet the reality they were designed for, discover that the reality has become something different from what was anticipated. And then you have a choice. You can insist on the outcome you planned for, or you can look at what is actually in front of you and ask, what can I build here? Ethan asked the second question. He is 24 years old. I am 42. It took him 7 years of planning and one unexpected call to ask it. It took me 15 years of not thinking about something and one late application to learn it. We are both, in our different ways, still learning. The partnership is real. The work is good. The lunch is honest if not comfortable. And Ethan Walsh is the best analyst at Chenstrad, his mother's son, doing work that is elegant because it is simple, because it sees the problem from every angle, because it was always in him, the way the music was always in Thomas, the way the truth was always in the soil, the way karma was always quietly keeping score and delivering eventually exactly what was earned. Thanks for listening.